I got my hands on Sonic Frontiers this past weekend, and I am convinced now more than ever that this is going to be a great Sonic title. So I played the game at PAX Australia for two 15-minute sessions on 2 separate days. I really wanted to play the game more, of course, but I did run out of time. The queues were about 2 hours long for each day, and there's lots to do at these conventions, but I really feel that I got a good impression of Sonic Frontiers. I got to feel how the game is, how he plays, what the levels are like, and just the performance in general. And honestly, if you're not excited for this game yet, I really think you should start getting there, because this is going to be great. Now, a quick note, I wasn't able to record my own footage, unfortunately, so these photos will have to do. Where to start? I think the best place is controls. Sonic Frontiers uses a different control scheme to many others, and that's where most of my concern lay beforehand. Does Sonic actually feel good in an open world? How are the cyberspace levels? And is combat actually going to flow well with Sonic's moveset? And the good news, of course, is that Sonic feels awesome out in the Starfall Islands. The controls are explained pretty clearly, with 4 sections to explain key control points like camera movement, side loop, unlocking skills, etc. There is also a training simulator which functions as the loading screen, kind of like in Bayonetta, whilst also being accessible at any point through a button input. This tells you what buttons to do for certain movements for Sonic's rather impressive moveset, and lets you test them out stress-free. This is actually how I learnt about the lightspeed dash and the drop dash in the game. They're all unlocked from the start, but unless you're looking for it specifically, they don't tell you. And that's cool, because there's a lot of discovery in this game, and that works really well with it. But back to the moveset, there's plenty to play with. From punches and kicks to the homing attack to the bounce attack, there are moves from other games like the sidestep and the bounce attack that are actually repurposed in this game, and it all just feels very natural. It works really well for Sonic's combat moveset. When in combat, the buttons are simple enough to pull repeated combos that get more wild as you unlock from the skill tree, but it inherently feels like Sonic's moves. You jump around and zip between enemies well, and the combos are satisfying to play with. I do feel that it could get a little bit boring if it was repeated ad infinitum, but I don't think they're at risk of that, because the variety of enemies I found in those 15 minutes was quite vast. Fighting the Guardians is excellent as well. The first time I fought Ninja, Tower and Asura, and each required significantly different tactics, which was expected of course. But on my second playthrough on the Sunday, I took on all 3 again, but I got to try out different things like parries, side loop strategies and such, and the skill difference felt amazing. It was really good to be able to take on each enemy my way, and it felt much better on the second day. The overriding feeling here is that the combat does feel natural to Sonic, and it's easily the best that the combat has felt in any game in the series so far. But what about the rest of the movement? Sonic does feel so free and fluid moving around in the open zone. Using the right trigger on the controller, you start running just kind of like in Lost World, but Sonic feels great. He tracks across the terrain well, and it keeps speed and momentum up really easily as well. The open zone promotes exploring with hidden bits and bobs everywhere, and strikes a decent balance of desolation and stuff to do thanks to rails, springs, enemies, and other regular Sonic things littered around. The moveset complements exploration so well, with a stamina bar making you think about your situation and how to manage it effectively. The open zone is truly where Sonic's movement shines, despite a couple of issues with some of the grind rails and the momentum on them. But there's also the cyberspace levels, and I got to play 3 of them. I got to play number 1, number 2, number 3, and Sonic should control pretty similarly. Right? He does. But it's not as fluid, unfortunately. Sonic feels a little stickier here when turning, but not to a debilitating extent or anything like that. Because these are 3D boost style levels, they're fairly linear in design. It's almost like they restricted his left and right turning slightly, like the boost games. The level design does feel good. You're rewarded for pulling off better jumps and specific movements, just like in previous games. And yes, I am aware that the level design is pretty much copied from other games in the series, but they copy good levels, and it works with the whole thing about the game being about memories and stuff like that, so I'm not mad about it at all. I didn't find any Forces levels because they were garbage, so I'm pretty happy about that. I mentioned story, and I think that's a decent place to touch on here. I didn't get to see much, but I did watch a few cutscenes. During the 2-hour queue, I saw someone get to the first Titan boss and saw the cutscene around that, which was awesome. But as for what I did when I was playing, I managed to hear Roger's Sonic as well as Mike's Eggman, and I'm really confident with what they're doing here. I think both voice actors are fantastic in general. I think they suit their characters really well. But this is a more serious toned game, and so I had a little question about whether or not they would suit that particularly well. And I've got to say, they do. The direction is fantastic for their voices, and they've still got their like snarky personalities and little jokes thrown in, but not like super comic relief sort of stuff, nothing slapstick that I've found so far. it fits well with their characters, and I'm really confident that they are going to deliver on this game. Performance-wise, no problems with the game. I was playing a 1080p version, I think it was 60 frames per second, it was quite smooth, but I don't remember too well. Considering this is an earlier build than we'll receive when we buy the game, there weren't really too many issues. There was a bit of pop-in and some collision detection on a wall or two, but the majority worked really well. The frame rate was nice and stable, Kronos Island looks really pretty, so I'm confident it will handle well no matter what console you play it on. To be honest, there is only a certain amount that you can glean from two 15-minute sessions that are playing the same bit over again, but my impressions are overwhelmingly positive. This finally feels like a worthy 3D Sonic game, and it has been a long time. Like, as far as new ones go, I think the last one that really topped it for me was Sonic Generations, so it's been about 10 years or something since then. My only real gripes with this game are the pace being knocked around by constant tutorials and pop-ups at the start, as well as the weird stickiness of the cyberspace levels, but frankly I don't anticipate them being any further than a mild annoyance in the long term of the game, and I have found out since that you can remove some of the tutorials and pop-ups through the settings menu, so that's really cool. To be honest, I thought I was already excited for Sonic Frontiers, but now that I've played it, I literally cannot wait for the 8th of November. I just need it to happen now, because I need to get my hands back on this game and play the full thing. So if you take one sentence away here, I think this is a proper good game changer for Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, if you've got any questions about Sonic Frontiers, please feel free to jump in the comments, or if you've already played it, let me know if my experience matches up to yours. I'm going to be doing more Sonic Frontiers content in the run-up to the game, and after, of course, covering content and guides and stuff, so make sure that you hit like and subscribe, and then click on this video right here for more amazing Sonic content from me.